Right, welcome back everyone to Minchat Chinuch at Congregation Schwartz, 1575 Coney Island Avenue, between El and Locust. We meet every Thursday night at 8, although we'll see Medafai stopping by the Island. This might be it till after Pesach, we'll see. As always, before we begin, I want to express my Hakar Satayv to TorahAnytime.com for making this year available to people who cannot attend in person. But I urge everyone to come join us. It's an interactive shir. There's a lot of give and take. We learn Minchat Chinuch, and the more people who come, the more we'll have a beer on the chakiris and the svaras that we learn in Minchat Chinuch. Also, before I begin, I want to dedicate. Is a problem? The schus of tonight's limud Torah l'kaim banu chachmi Yisrael lav gedalim who need a refuah shleima right now. Yosef Shalom ben Chaim Musha, Chaim Yisrael ben Chanet Cyril, forget their names, but also Ramat Yisrael Solomon, Rosh Shlomo Brevda, the Tosha Rebbe, and the Skolana Rebbe. Shall be Zeichet to Refuah Shleima. Okay, this week is in the Arba Parshias is Parshas HaChodesh, so we're going to be doing a little shtickle from the Minchat Chinuch on the fourth mitzvah in the Torah, Kiddush HaChodesh. Everyone knows the famous Rashi in Onei Bereshis. That's the mitzvah we're learning. This was the first mitzvah that was given to Klal Yisrael as a complete nation. It's a very chashuv mitzvah. It's chaylik shem la'atzmai. Havamina the Torah should begin with it. So we're going to be learning. Obviously, it's a big mitzvah, but I want to zero in on something that shows the godliness, the mental agility of the Mechaber Minchat Chinuch tonight. A few agdamis before we look at the small shtickle that we're going to do. Two concepts that one needs to be familiar with before, three basic concepts before we learn the shtickle tonight. First is the bare bones idea of the mitzvah of Kiddush HaChodesh. What's the basic mitzvah of Kiddush HaChodesh? So, science, astronomy is certainly not my strong suit, but basically the lunar cycle is 29 days and change. I don't know exactly what the fraction is. And because it's not an even number, because it's a fraction number, and because sometimes the chidush halavana, meaning when the moon gets back to the point where it was when it began its cycle, when it comes full cycle, that might be during daylight hours. So the chidush halavana, that little sliver of moon that appears when the lavana is bechidusha, is not visible during the day. All right. So sometimes a month will be 29 days long, and sometimes a month will be 30 days long. Practically speaking, in terms of our being able to see the new moon, we may not be able to see that new sliver of moon until the 31st day. Okay. So when the moon is visible, okay, the previous month had 29 days. Okay, in Raiv in Yanei Halacha, a new date, a new calendar date begins at nightfall. All right, all of our Yom Tovim, Shabbos begins at night, Yom Kippur begins at night, all the Yom Tovim begin at night. So, if after 29 days of the previous month, if there's a sliver of moon that's visible the night of the 30th, okay, so the previous month is a Chodesh Pshut, is a simple month, right? And what would be the 30th day of the previous month is what's called Rosh Chodesh, right? That's when Bezdin has to be Makash the Chodesh. Eidim come to Bezdin, they say, hey, last night we saw, and they describe what the moon looked like to them, famous Ma'ameh Chazal, that the Rambam says that it was B'mar HaNavuah, it was B'mar HaAstronomy, that Kaviyachal, the Eibishter, showed Moshe Rabbeinu what the Levana B'chidusha is supposed to look like, or what the crescent is exactly supposed to look like, or what its astronomical position is supposed to be. And he told him, Kazev Re'eva Kadesh. When you see this, you can be Makadesh, the Levana. And the Gemara Rosh Hashanah is full of Mishnayos Rosh Hashanah is full of, when a Tanaim set up charts, he showed the item on charts, it'll look like this, it'll look like that. Whatever the Eidos is, but the point is, if Eidos come the night of the 30th, so that day is declared Rosh Chodesh. If Eidos does not come, it wasn't visible, it was a cloudy night, you couldn't find kosher Eidim, could be for a million and one reasons why not. Then the previous month is called a Chodesh Mu'beres, not to be confused with a Shana Mu'beres. It's a 30-day long Chodesh, not a 29-day long Chodesh. And what would have been the 31st day of the previous month, that's Memela, Rosh Chodesh, without Eidus. Okay? So the Ikar Mitzvah of Kiddush HaChodesh that we're talking about is by following a Chodesh Pshuta when you have a 29-day month, and then Eidim come to be made on the day of the 30th, what they saw the previous night, the night of the 30th, and that becomes Rosh Chodesh. Okay? Nowadays we have a Kviyas with a calendar that was set up by Hillel HaZaken, it's all whole different mahalach. But that's the Araisa Dikadin of Kiddush HaChodesh. Point number one. Point number two, it requires Eidus, right? So, there's a klal in Eidus, any Eidus is the Araisa, that you need Edom Ksherim. Edom Ksherim have to be Gvarim, women apostle Eidus. They have to be Ksherim, they can't be Psulim Eidus, through Rishus, through other things the apostle people Eidus, Einem in a Yishuv, right? They have to be Gedolim. They can't be immature. Under Bar Mitzvah age Bacher comes to be made. It could be the feinste Bacher from the Shanste Mishpacha. It's not an Eidus. You need Gedolim, Ksherim, Gvarim to say Eidus. And that's true for Kiddush HaChodesh too. Now, there's another Indian in Eidus, generic thing of Eidus, that our Minchas Chinuch is going to be laboring whether or not or how to apply to Kiddush HaChodesh. And that is the concept of that Eidus, in order to be kosher, requires something called Eidus She'at Yochel Hazima. If it's Iyat Yochel Hazima, it's possible. What does that mean? There's a concept in halacha called Hazama. I'm not going to confuse you with a lot of names. I'm just going to call them Kita Aleph and Kita Beis. Kita Aleph, the first group of Eidim comes to Bezdin, and they say, we saw Moshe kill Aaron. Okay? Kita Beis comes to Bezdin, and they say, how could you possibly say that you saw Moshe kill Aaron on the date, the time, and the place where you claim to have witnessed this crime? You were away with us someplace else. So the second group of Eidim is called Mazimim. The first group of Eidim is called Zaimimim. And the din of the Torah is, you do unto them what they plotted to do unto the innocent people. How do we know which group is telling the truth? You have to absolutely believe the second group. If that, and only in that way, they contradict the first group. If they say something else, they say, how can you say Moshe killed Aaron on Tuesday? We saw Aaron walking around Bahar Barak, we saw Aaron walking around Hale and Hardy on Wednesday. It's impossible. How can you say Moshe killed Aaron? Moshe was with us. Aaron was with us. How can you say Moshe killed Aaron? A guy ran him over with a truck. It wasn't Moshe. A gorilla killed him. Whatever other kind of contradiction, then it's the equivalent of what we would call today mistrial. You don't know who to believe, that's a whole different din. But a very specific kind of contradiction, if the second group comes and talks about the Eidim themselves, the first group of Eidim, how could you possibly say this? You were away with us someplace else at that time. That's called Hazama. The second group is believed absolutely. The first group is disbelieved absolutely. And we do unto them what they plan to do with their Eidus. If the original Eidus does not have potential for that to happen to them, that itself is a psul neis. The simplest thing would be if the first group is vague over time and place. Where do you say, I don't know, I'm having post-traumatic stress disorder. You expect them to remember it was a murder. I can't remember the exact place. Sorry, can't remember the exact place. Then nobody's going to be able to contradict you in this way. When was, I don't know, I blacked out. I don't know, I myself was in a coma for 3 weeks afterwards. I can't remember exactly. Don't tie me down to a specific time. No good. Whether or not that applies to Kiddush HaChodesh is going to be the topic of tonight's Minchas Chinuch. One last Hagdama. You have sometimes conundrums, in halacha, where things kind of have to happen simultaneously. If they don't happen simultaneously, then you'll be left with what we call, if Mamalushan in English, a catch-22 situation. Classic example. Okay? One of the ways that an Eved Knani gains liberty is through something called a get shikhr or a shtar shikhr. It's a document similar to a get that dissolves a marriage. There's a shtar, there's a document that can dissolve a Adain Eved relationship. And if the Adain gives the Eved a get shikhr, so he becomes a free man. His halachic status changes, he becomes a full-fledged ger now. While he was an Avdus, he was only a partial ger, he was only mechuyev in the mitzvah that an Isha was mechuyev in. It has all kinds of ramifications. The halachic identity status change of going from being an Eved Kanaini, to a Ben Chayrin. He can marry Jewish women now. All kinds of differences. Here's the problem. Okay? Kol masha kon Eved kon Rabbi. A get works with a kinyan. You have to have the capacity to make kinyanim. You have to have the capacity to own things. Being owned yourself, being chattel, being property yourself, you can't own anything. So the master he cups his hands like a woman by her get. He receives the shtar. He's a free man. No, he's not a free man. It's like the master took the document out of one pocket and stuck it into another pocket. If the Eved would find a Metzia in the street, a Metzia that you're allowed to keep, the El Metzia Shalai, and he would pick it up, it automatically belongs to the other. Yad Eved ki Yad Rabbi, Kol Mashakon Eved Kon Rabbi. How does this work? So Chazal say there's a concept called Gittay v'Yadai Bain Kechad. His get and his capacity to be kind of the get, to become a free man, they come as one. They become simultaneously. Because if you try to do it sequentially, it'll never work. He can never be I7. Okay. Finally, one last thing. Okay? I'm not going to go into it in depth because we won't have any time to learn the Mitzvah, so we have to learn time. But everyone's heard Chakiras, Shtikal Chtayra, drushes about this. What happens? We're about to have a mitzvah Sfira Saimer, Mitzvah Hashem, Pesach Abal Lataiva. What happens to Ketanim that are misgadol during Sfira? We know if we look at Sfira, all 49 days is one contiguous, one big mitzvah. You miss a night, you stop making the bracha, because there are shittas that hold they're not 49 individual mitzvahs. It's all one big mitzvah. What happens to a cotton that's nisgadol in middle of Sfira? Up until the day of his bar mitzvah, it was only an any of Chinuch by him to count Sfira Saimer. Now it's taka the mitzvah deraisa, but he can't have tamimus. He doesn't get the whole Sfira. Should he sell? Should he not sell? We've all heard this before. Now look at this very, very interessante Minchat Chinuch here. Take a look on page Chavav. Of your handout has two sides, the back side. Chavav. You don't have a handout? I think. Okay, yeah, good idea. Open all three, if you don't mind. Okay. Listen to this. Interessante hypothetical shaila he comes up with. Remember, of course, we're not going in our era. We have a luach kavua right now for chadashim, for shanim. We know when a chaydish is going to be muber, when it's not going to be muber, when a year is going to be muber. We're talking about in the times when Bezdin was makash al piriyah, and he needed kosher edim. So it's on page Chavav, the right hand column, second paragraph, Ois Yud Daled. V'nistapakti, imbo edim shenoldu b'reish chaydish Nisan. That's their birthday. The year they were born was Aleph Nisan, Nisan 1. That's their birthday, right? But Nisan 1 doesn't come out the same every year. Sometimes Nisan 1 comes out 30 days after Adar 1, and sometimes Nisan 1 comes out 31 days after Adar 1. Okay. Noldu b'reish chaydish Nisan, v'hayayim b'reish chaydish Nisan shalmu yud gimel shanim. Today, on Rosh Chodesh Nisan is when they've completed 13 years and they transition from being Ketanim to being Gedalim. V'nasam Gedalim takef b'tchilas leil Rosh Chodesh. Right? You become a Gadol the night of your Bar Mitzvah, not the morning of your Bar Mitzvah, the night of your Bar Bayam. That's when you become famous, parenthetically. We learn Chassidus from Misnagdim at 9:15. Famous vart of Reb Tzadok, a kind of Lublin. He says people have a tais, and everyone makes a big deal of motif for bar mitzvahs. It's tefillin. It's a tais. The first mitzvah that a yid is mechuyev is Krishma Shalarvis, because everyone becomes a gadol whenever you're bar mitzvahs. Rosh Chodesh and your Gilnis and Tammuz, it doesn't matter when you're bar mitzvahs. But we all become gedalim at night. The first mitzvah that's chal on every yid, every night, is Krishma Shalarvis. He says that's why Mesachtas Bracha starts with Krishma Shalarvis, because that's the knis of every yid. Tavaris Hashem. That's how Shas has to begin. Famous inside of Reb Tzadok. Okay, at any rate, yeah. V'nasam g'dalim taken v'tchilas lo Rosh Chodesh. I mishal melech perak beis meishus lo chavav shachar shemilusam lamanei. All of these ma'amakaimis are the paiskim that say that Gadlus begins at night. V'heim bo v'amru sharol avon hayayim. They saw it hayayim meaning last night in the evening. Yeah. Vayamu shloshim la'adar. Now today will be, if there will be no kosher Eidim who saw the Levana b'chidusha, so today will be other 30, not Nisan 1. Heichadin, im trichen bezin l'kabel edusin. Should bezin be makabel le'edus in such a case or not? Here's the chakira. Kivin de mikabel edusin v'kachu bezin as a chaydish. If bezin will say, okay, you're kosher Eidim, you're adults, we can listen to you. Mekudish. This is it, this is Nisan 1. So now they're taka adults. Oh, it's our birthday, happy birthday to us. Yeah? They're flagging tefillin belt. I mean, a chunga like tefillin, whatever the minhag was. A week before, a month before, 3 months before, but now it's already mitzvah say daraisa, right? V'yikatchu bezin as a chaydish, im ken resh chaydish hayayim, v'gam esrim balayla hay resh chaydish. That means that last night was already resh chaydish. That means that they saw the moon when they were gedolim. Right? Assuming that they didn't see the moon at twilight, assuming they saw it when it was already vaday nacht. Yeah? Ukashu resh chaydish, parenthetically, he's going to deal with what happens if they see the twilight a little bit later. Ukashu resh chaydish, hem gedolim, or bazayda gedolim, kibi resh chaydish, hem b'nei gimel. Umakach and shop al yodin, so Bezin didn't do anything wrong. They're makabel edus from gedolim, so they can be makash l'chaydish. That's one side of chakira. Shop mitzvah mitzvah chaydish al riyah. Bezin was makayim their mitzvah, the Edom did what they were supposed to do. Kivin dish kadosh hachaydish, avlu gedolim shor as hachaydish. Now that the chaydish will be mekudish, so they're taka gedolim. So it's not a vicious cycle; it's a beneficial cycle. If Bezin pronounced it mekudish, it comes out that they were gedolim when they saw it. If they were gedolim when they saw it, Bezin was allowed to be mekabel or hedus. Dilma perhaps kivin to atahem adayin ketanim. They're becheskes ketanim. Yesterday you were a cotton, right? On the 29th day of Adar, you were certainly a cotton. Yeah? You want to say your status changed, then we should be Makabel Yedus? Prove it. Make a taisa. You're a cheskes katnus. Who says you're godly yet? The Avalu Gedolim, excuse me. Ubeshas Drisha v'chakira hemaydim ketanim. Okay? If we're talking that you need kosher edus, yeah? And has the specs of other kinds of edus for malchus and edus for capital crimes, yeah, other inyanim of edus that Bezin adjudicates on. So then you need drisha v'chakira. Okay, it's not an automatic thing. The edom say a few words and Bezin pronounces judgment. You need drishas v'chakiras. What are drishas v'chakiras? Drishas v'chakiras are the drishas, are the questions that are designed to have hazama. 6 of them have to do with time, and 1 of them has to do with location. And chakiras are questions the Bezin asks just to thoroughly interrogate the Edom. Really, you find it most often in Din Nefashos because of the Din of Yitzilo Eda. It's a chiyuv, it's mutal on Bezin to try to passel the Edom, not to be able to try capital offenses. So you try to get the Edom to contradict one another. You don't ask Edom that are pertinent to the crime. You don't ask what was the murder weapon. Okay, you even ask questions like, well, what color shirt was he wearing? Was he wearing a blue shirt? Was he wearing a black shirt? Was he wearing a white shirt? So if they both tell the same story, fine, they passed the chakiras. If they're sides of one another, even if they agreed in the actual story and the time and the location of the event, that can also pass the edus. That's drishas and chakiras, right? So Bezin takes time interrogating the witnesses. Interrogating is maybe not the right word in our concepts of jurisprudence. Cross-examining the witnesses, right? And they're ketanim. Kol zman the Bezin is dealing with them until Bezin pronounces those words. Mekudish. It's up to the Edom, it's up to... and I didn't even go into this because, again, we're not learning the Pratadinim of Kiddush HaChodesh. But you need Smuchin, you need Eretz Yisrael. Okay, if you have a Musmuch, the Rambam says you can do it even outside of Eretz Yisrael, but this is the Bezin HaGol B'Yerushalayim. The Rambam stells through the pasuk of Kimitzion Teitzei Torah with Dvar Hashem Yerushalayim for the din of Kiddush HaChodesh. Right? Talking about the Supreme Sanhedrin. So Kol Zman they're being Darish V'chayka them, they're still Ketanim. Yeah? What? Right. Do we need independent corroboration if they're Ketam or Gedolim, or are they nemen to say on themselves when their birthday is?
No. I mean, stop if I will come to this, they're not going to ask me
They're not going to card you.
Right.
You have you look like a gadol. You look the part.
I'm saying,
Right.
it's just only David knows the verse.
Right.
Is it only because we have the Eidim that are raising the issue?
Lamazagan. Let's, for argument's sake, yeah. Let's say we have independent Eidim that are made on these boys that 13 years ago on Rosh Chodesh Nissen, they were there. They were the Hatzalah guys who delivered their mother in the ambulance. The two mothers, obviously, they're not going to be brothers, right? If they're brothers, if they're twins, they're postulated too. No, that's also not so much. The Rambam says if a father and son see the Levana b'chidusha, it should come to Bezin anyway, because maybe somebody else will come and be mitzvah for one of them, and you'll have a kosher pair of edus. But yeah, let's say it's two independent boys who were born, they share the same birthday, same maternity ward, whatever. Maybe the same obstetrician, delivered their mother. Lamazagin, that they have independent Eidim being made on them. The truth is, it's a hypothetical question. He doesn't go into that detail. I don't know. Did they have record keeping in the ancient world? Did they have shtaris? Did the shtaris count? B'chlal, how did you establish continence and godless for anything if somebody was borderline? Today we have photo ID documents and people accept that. I don't know what the halachic mechanism for establishing age is. Whatever it is, we know that their birthday is Rosh Chodesh Nisan. Question is, what's today? Is today 30 Adar or is today Nisan 1? That's the question. Let me just finish the sentence. It's a catch-22. The truth is, I'll tell you, if I was sitting on the Sanhedrin, I'd say, get out of here, don't bother me. We can't even start. I should waste my time being Darish L'chayker. Why? For what purpose? L'man Liga Larik. I'm going to be Darish L'chayker you, and in the end, I won't be able to be Makal B'yeh. This is because you're a cotton. Unless other Eidim come and say that they saw the Levana B'chidusha last night, then we know that you're Gedolim. Then we can start listening to you. Maybe if one Eid, who's a Vada Gadol, will come, maybe that's enough of a reyesa in your cheskes katness, that we can start listening to you. But like this, why should I listen to you? What? Which you think it's partial the second way? What? Right.
Till Bezin doesn't say Mekadosh Chodesh Mekadosh, they ktanim. So how can we accept testimony that we know they're ktanim?
That's why I was makdam the totally arbus and vant sugya of get the v'yadei bain kachad by get shechur of an evet. Maybe there's an Indian of get the v'yadei bain kachad. Edusan v'gadlusan bain kachad. Why shouldn't I listen to you? The way you're telling me the story, you are gedolim today. Remember, the day is one contiguous unit. If Bezin says Mekudesh 2 minutes before Shkia, it's been Rosh Chodesh since last night says. So when they'll say Mekudesh, they'll talk about gedolim. A second ago you weren't gedolim. Okay, it says get the v'yadei bain kachad. That mean you're right. To me the second side is much more Sephardic, but that's why I thought maybe is the Sfar of the first side. What do you want to say, Rabbi Dovid?
By the end, I can see how it comes together.
Yeah.
But here you need the business proclamation that it's Rosh Chodesh. It seems to.
By the Avid, you need an independent. You had to be kind of the star to be kind of the get. How's it any different? What? Yeah. Remind me.
That's why Get the works there.
You don't need a
Kenyan.
Kenyan.
Get you on the Kenyan. Just when us on the other.
Uh-huh.
If we were taking me to the Kenyan, I think it says one second to be the one.
Uh-huh.
I think it's
Good English. I can't.
Why is it in Kenya?
Get you on the Kenyan. You can give a get on top. Ish, ever. So it's just a mice in the scene. So the mice in the scene, and we say, get the
Until Chaim der Ben Gershom, the Reisa, you can be Magash and Isha Balkarcha. Okay, Shane. So in other words, you're saying it's not a universal idea. That's the get to the Bank. Does the Nesivas Creek? I heard it's a beautiful Ktsais. There's the Nesivas Creek on that Ktsais. The Nesivas usually creeks on the Ktsais. I don't know.
Is the Chayvur supposed to be considered promise?
is it a chayv or a schus to be a gadol? I think it's definitely considered a schus. The only tzad by ger katan shemat bil nas al das bezdin is avda bafker and nichalei. Right, that was the tzad in Chazal that we should say en chaven lodem ela b'fanav, right? Because there's a concept of avda bafker and nichalei. But for Yiddish and the Neshama, how can it not be a schus to become fully mechuyev b'mitzvahs? God la mitzvah v'aysa v'mishayna mitzvah v'aysa. Paiskim, it says that's where the sud of bar mitzvah comes from, is because of that Gemara that says that who was the summa over there? I forgot it's famous. It's a Gemara Makis where he says me'kara when I thought that God will mishayna mitzvah v'aysa mishu mitzvah v'aysa. I'd say avdul yom tov l'rabbanan for the ones who prove it. Now that I know that the din is God la mitzvah v'aysa, then at any rate, so what's the tzad that should be considered a chayv to become a gadol? As long as I'm invoking Reb Tzadok tonight and mixing him into a halachic discussion, I don't know what they're going to say about this at Chabad, because I know Chabad, a birthday is a big thing every week. Okay, in case you think I'm discriminating against Chabad, I'm learning the Alter Rebbe tonight in the second year. Reb Tzadok says that the minik kedoshim by Yidden is only to make something by a bar or a bas mitzvah, because it is Chazal, because ba'etzim with the law adam shlai niv mishniv. After shenivra, you have it as bayre. So when you become mitzvah and when you become an Oved Hashem, then there's some meaning to your existence. There's something to celebrate. But before that, for the first 13 years of your life, what are you doing? Okay, but let's go with this for a second. Lama Zogin, okay, for argument's sake. Let's say for a minute that becoming a gadol would be considered a chayv. Yeah? So you're telling this to the din of ger katan matbil al das bezin.
Have a migo by saying that they're what they're saying is the emes in terms of
Is this considered shalai b'fnayim or b'fnayim? Mischus and chayv are nageya the shalai has because they're not balei das. So it's the same thing like ger katan. Okay, so again, I'm a little bit thick. I'm a little bit slow on the uptake over here. How are you being machriya the Minchat Chinuch Safek? That they should be makabel eretz, they should not be makabel eretz. They should be makabel because
for them it's a chayv to be a gadol.
yeah,
But they're saying that they are doing them because they saw the levana.
right.
So we should believe them because they have a migo. They're better off after being a gadol that day.
It's not a question of nemanis. If somebody's a kosher aid, he doesn't need a migu for believability. The problem is the katan. That's the problem. Okay, so it's a very interesting shaila. Before we can learn the stats, we have to go a little bit backwards. Okay, take a look. Turn back to Amud Chaf Hey. Okay. Okay, we're going to do Isid Gimel, but before we do Isid Gimel, just very quickly and briefly to familiarize you with what Isid Gimel is going to turn on. Famous, it's the first Taisus Masechtas Makis. Okay, Makis starts off with a parak on Hazama, and it starts off with the exceptional cases. Okay, there are two cases that the Gemara the Mishnah brings two more. The Gemara brings two cases where we cannot do unto the Edom what their Edus was going to do unto the accused. Okay? If two people come and they say about a Kayan that he's a Ben Grusha or a Ben Chalutza, his mother was a Grusha, or a woman, a Yavam who underwent Chalitza before she ever married the Kayan's father, in other words, they're going to passel him from the Kahuna, he becomes a Chalo, right? If that's what their Edus was, and then they're found to be Zaymim, we cannot make them, even if they're Kahanim themselves, we can't make them into B'nai Grusha and B'nai Chalutza. Ta'ishtalsu will be the same thing in Mamzeris. Somebody comes to say Edus and somebody is a Mamzer, and then Mazimim would come and say, how could you notice you were away with us at the pertinent moment? It wouldn't make them mamzerim either. Okay? In other cases, where Edom come and they say that somebody is chayiv galus for manslaughter, galus for killing somebody by accident. So even if they're found to be zayimim, they do not go into galus. Whatever the Gemara has svaras, psukim, to learn why these cases are exceptional. So Tais asks a classic question. He says, if we're not going to do unto them what their testimony was going to do unto the accused, so how does anyone ever pass a kain? How does anyone ever get sent into galus? The Eidus is Eidus Shiat Yachal Azima. It's Eidus with no potential for Azama. If you tell me that if Mazimim actually come, we're not going to do the din of Azama to them, so then how do you ever accept their testimony in the first place? And Tais has two Mahalchim, two Terutzim. One teretz is, he says, that they're going to end up getting Malchus. Okay? That Malchus is close enough. Okay, I'm truncating the Taisus. He compares it to another case in Sanhedrin with a Baskain Shazinsa. He says it's close enough. You know, it's not that they walk. It's not that they go off scot-free. When we say Eidah Shiat Yachal Azima, it means either that the Zayimim will get nothing, they'll walk, right? Or even if we'll give them Malchus, it's so far removed from what they were trying to do with their Eidus, it doesn't line up enough. That's not called potential for Azam. Here, they wanted somebody to lose the Kuna. If we give them Malchus, that's considered they're punished enough. It's close enough. Maybe I'm not saying it over in the most lumdish way, but that's the first Mahalach in the Taisis. The other Mahalach in the Taisis is another catch-22 situation, a cart before a chicken and egg kind of question. It's such a good takasha, it answers itself. This that the Torah required, Eidah Shati Yachal Azima, is in normal cases where Hazama is potential, where Hazama is possible, so then it becomes a requirement. But if there are particular dinim of the Torah where there's no theoretical tzir where you could ever have Hazama, then the Torah waives that requirement. Then you can have Eidos even without potential for Hazama. Those are the two Mahalchim. The din in the Mishnah is Eile ben Grusha, Eile ben Chalutza don't get what their testimony was going to do. Instead, they get Malchus. So one Mahalach in Tais is, and that's considered a kiyum of the din of Hazama, and the other Mahalach in Tais is, you don't require potential for Hazama in such cases. Okay. Now let's take a look at the Minchas Chinuch, Oisiv Gimel. Venera. I mean, just the flinkheit of the Mayach, just the way, I'm spending hours, so to speak, giving Hagdamas, trying to wrap my mind around it, and like it's just it sounds like this, it sounds like that, weitergegangen. The goodness of it and the spoil from Venera. The be'inan kan gam edish shayu yichayl lahazima. You need for edis hachaydish, you also need edis shati yachal lahazima. Now, as I told you before, the drishas are the questions that establish potential for hazama. 6 questions about time, which Shemitah cycle, which Yovel, which year, which month, which day, which week, and so on and so forth. Those are the 6 questions of time, and 1 of place, and those questions are called drishas. Right? So, I mean, I think it's self-perpetuating. 6 out of the 7 drishas are answered by Eidei Kiddush HaChaydish. They're saying a time. They're saying, when do we see it? We saw it last night. Rosh Chodesh, fill in the blank. Nisan, other, whatever Chodesh they're being made on. Right? So, time is not the issue. If there's an issue, it's where did you see it from? You saw it from Har Zaysim, you saw it from Har Menuchas, you saw it from a valley, from the top of a building, from your Mepeset, where did you see it? That could be a question that goes into Yachal Azim. Okay. But whatever the case may be, the Minchas Chinuch starts off with a Hanacha Pshuta. To him it seems Pashut that you need potential for Hazama. You need Eidah Shati Yachal Azim. After the Evid im Kitshu Bezin al Pi HaMuzamim HaMaisa Kayim, there's a special din when it comes to Kiddush HaChaydish. We say Atam Afilu Mezidim, Atam Afilu Mutayim. Even if Bezin made a mistake, no matter how they were makabel the Kiddush HaChaydish, once they pronounce it Mekudesh, that's it. They don't back down. They don't reverse their decision. They don't regular case of Hazama. Yeah, the alleged murderer was about to get Sayef, was about to get decapitated. yeah, and then mazimim come in the nick of time between sentencing and execution. So they reverse it. They say, okay, you're a free man, go home, right? But when it comes to Kiddush HaChodesh, even if they got it wrong, even if the Edom turned out to be psulim, or they saw the wrong thing, whatever, all of the nonsic permutations of what could have gone wrong with the Edus, once Sanhedrin pronounces it Mekudesh, their ruling stands. Hainu, mishum atem afilu mutam v'afilu mezidim. V'im kitshu yom shloishim b'lo Edom klal, gam kem asem kayam. You're supposed to have Edus. What happens if the Bezdin say, the Dayanim and the Sanhedrin will say, I need Edom? I saw it myself last night. I need Edom? I made astronomical calculations. I know that last night was Rosh Chodesh. Mekudesh. I shouldn't have done it, but b'diavad, once I did it, it's taka Mekudesh. Aval kivin, the Benatar b'inish the Edus Shera, tzarech gam ken eish adiyach lazim. He's talking about l'chatchil. If Bezdin is being arntlich, if Bezdin wants to do it by the book, yeah, so then they have to be Makabal Edus, only Edus that has potential for Azama. It's not only in criminal law, it's in civil law. You need Edus Shatiyach Lazima. Even if you argue on the Shach, the Paiskim to argue on the Shach and say, then Dinim Amanis, you don't need this potential for Azama. Alakan Shavadit Ladina Knossos, to be in Smuchen and Drish V'Chakira. You need Smuchen, and you need Drish V'Chakira. So he's saying, even according to the Paiskim arguing on the Shach, he's being Machriya, that everyone would agree, Kula Alma Maida, that when it comes to Kiddush HaChodesh, you're going to need potential for Azama. Chozam and Atayah, there's all a din deraisa, im ken tzorach b'vadei Edus Shatiyach Lazima. Okay. Before we go weiter, I want to read you a Rambam and tell me if you think that this Minchas Chinuch can come out according to this Rambam. This Rambam is in Hilchos Kiddush HaChodesh, Perek Beis Halacha Beis. And Rambam steht azay. Din Torah, Midoraisa, she'ein medaktekin be'edus HaChodesh. The Dayanim on the Bezdin should not be too precise, too exacting with the Edom who come to say Edus HaChodesh. Shafilu Kitshus HaChodesh al pi Edom, v'dim tzu zayim be'edusan, harei Mekudesh. We just read before. Even if they're found to be zayimim, or psulim, or anything else wrong with the Edus, b'diavad, once Bezdin pronounced day 30 Mekudesh, it's Mekudesh. That's when the new month started. Lefichach, hayu b'rishayim mekam Edus HaChodesh mikol adam Yisrael. All comers, any Yid, Basher Husham, any Jew walks into the Bezdin, he can look like a schlepper, he can look like the lowest strata of society. I don't care if he's Jewish. I'm not going to clear around too much how kosher this he is. Okay? Parenthetically, Rabbi, maybe this Rambam could have an impact when you have boys that you think you need to card, the in-between, are you a cut and you gadol? Maybe that's also part of the lack of digduk, although I'm not sure. Yesh l'chalik. Listen to the Lashon of Rambam. L'ficha b'yishayim mekabel me'edus HaChodesh mikol adam Yisrael, shekol Yisrael b'chesed kashrus, ad she'yivol l'choshes apostle. Right? Everyone has a chesed kashrus. I don't know, maybe on Katanim you could say they have a chesed katnus, especially if they look immature. Mishakilkalu abaysusim, one of the heretical sects, we had Tzdukim, we had Baisusim. Mishakilkalu abaysusim, v'yishaychrin anoshim lo'ed shiro v'hem lo'ro. They used to try to mess up the Yiddish Mayadim. They used to hire falsha Eidim to be made that they saw the Levana b'chedusha when they didn't. His Chinuch l'yikavu Bezdin Edus HaChodesh al mehem shemakim Bezdin ha'isam shem ksheirim. Bezdin has to know how to have some recognition. They have to be people, they can't be strangers. They have to be people that the Bezdin can vouch for them that they're not Baisusim. They're from Unzera. One of ours, they're Prussian, they're regular rabbinic Jews. And that they're kosher leidus, v'shiyu darshim v'chaykrim be'edus. You know the Diyuk of the Lashon Rambam over here? It's after the Baisusim, when Mekalkal, then there was a takana midrabanan that Bezdin should be darish v'chayker. Does that sound to you like a daraisa requirement? It doesn't to me either. And if it's not a daraisa requirement, how can you say that you need Eidah Shat Yochel Azima without Drisha Chakira? Drisha Chakira, okay, good. So Drisha, I 6 out of 7 Drisha questions, like I said, more or less they're answered. You're saying what time your Eidah is. Well, your Eidah is about time. So you're saying what time you saw the Eidah. But you also have to ask where. It sounds like before the Baisusim came, it's okay. From where? From what vantage point? With a telescope? On a telescope? Through the clouds? Not through the clouds? It's not a question we're going to ask. It's only after the Baisusim messed up. So even though the Rambam starts off by saying that if they're found to be Zayimim, the Eidim, yeah, but they're found to be Zayimim after Bezin pronounced Mekudesh, retroactively, it's not going to mess up the Kiddush HaChodesh. But I would say that's happenstance. If they happen to have volunteered where they saw it from, yeah, we were standing on Har Zaysim, and the clouds parted, and we saw the Levana, it looked like this. And then Mazimim come and they say, what? Last night, 11 p.m., you were on Har Zaysim? Baloney. You were with us in Tel Aviv at that time last night. But the Bezdin should be Darish V'chayim, tell us exactly where you saw it. I want to know the time on the clock exactly. That's only after the Baisusim messed up. I don't understand what he's claiming. How can you say that for Kiddush HaChodesh you need Eidah Shat Yochel Azima, and it's a Din D'Oraisa? Same because it's a Din D'Oraisa, like all Eidah D'Oraisa needs it. Yeah? So what's shot in this Rambam, which I'm assuming is a Gemara somewhere? That only Mishiaskinu Mishakilkula Baisusim. That we need Rishas V'Chakiris. That's my question. Yeah.
Let's say the
Yeah.
person did not do a good job with Rishas.
Absolutely. That's the baseline meaning. The other cases of Eidah Shat Yochel Azima are things like this. Of Meidon Bishplashim Ben Gushim B'Chalutza, Eidim Ameid on a Baskayan Shazinsa. They get one kind of Misa, she gets another kind of Misa. But the Pasha, the textbook cases of Eidah Shat Yochel Azima are when they don't tie themselves down to a specific time or place. Because whenever the Mazimim will come and say, Taka, now remember. Yeah, Taka, we were with you Wednesday in Tel Aviv, but by Thursday we returned to Yerushalayim. Taka, now thanks for reminding me. The murder happened on or Achil's Chazir, whatever they're being made about, happened on Thursday. That's the Pasha Pshat, and the Pasha Pshat. That's the baseline din of potential for Azama. You must tie yourself down to a time and place. Without Drisha, I don't know about Chakira, but without Drisha, you don't have that. You my kasha or not? What? Not so clear. All right, you know what? You didn't come here to hear my kasha, you came here to learn Minchas Chinuch. Let me get weiter. Okay. So, again, he starts off with an Anacha Pshuta that you need potential for Azama for Eidus of Kiddush HaChodesh.
What would they, let's say they Muslim them, what would happen to them? They get Malchus. It's like
exactly. What else are you going to do to them? Send them in send them to in a lunar module. Right. Omnam yesh loimer. Dezei yitoli b'shnei tarutza hatayis reish makis. Guy ben grusha ben masal meiden. Sheikshul can ask him chazah hatayis in brief. Ha'avi edishat yochel azima. How can you ever make somebody into a ben grusha? How can you ever pass l'kayin from the avodah? How can you ever dispatch a person to the miklat? Any Edom that will ever come and be made on such situations, or by definition, Edus without potential for Hazama, so it should always be possible Edus. We should never be able to adjudicate those kind of things. So, Tais has two terutzim. V'tirtzu, the first test is Kivin the like and Shapa Yechal Lazima. Because in the end they're going to get Malchus, that's considered Edus Shata Yechal Lazima. It has potential for Hazama. Im kain gam kan nihidol shach den azam lazam kash zamam. What can we do unto them like they plotted to do? What can we do? Ki hem ratzish yayim resh chodesh uman nuchal aslam. What can you do to them already? Mikol, particularly if it's marcheshvan, particularly if it's a month that has no yom tovim in it. Maybe you want to go out on a limb and say They were trying to be machshel Klal Yisrael in eating on Yom Kippur. They lied about the machshel Klal Yisrael and eating chametz. But certainly in a Gevenlich a month where there are no Yom Tovim going on, what exactly were they trying to do? They weren't trying to do anything. Nevertheless, they'd still get Malchus, like every That's the baseline punishment. That's the default punishment for what we can't do to them, what they plot to do with their edus, and we give them malchus. That's considered potential for azama. Achi Shleimer, the loishayach kan klal didn't say the malchus. You could say no. 1 second, not so fast. By ben grusha ben chalutza, by edus of galus, we give them malchus. The alfina love malchus based on base min zt'zl at tzaddik. Vishi was a Russia is a pasuk for that. Vayim ben akais a Russia. It would just be for the loisana berecha et shaker. The Gemara says that's a lav shem by ma'aser. You wouldn't get malchus for that. It's a special. It's a bazunder pasuk by Edom Zaymimim that we darshan from the tznikus atzak v'shivas a Russia and the smichus vayim ben akais a Russia. We darshan on that means that's a reference to Edom Zaymimim that they get malchus. But there's got to be a tzaddik and a Russia involved. There's got to be a guy accused of a crime. There's got to be 2 litigants and a din Torah, possibly, going to the Shach and the other Rishonim and other Paiskim that hold that you need potential for Azama Beidin and Mamonis. So when you have a tzaddik and a Russia, it means in this din Torah. The one who's mechuyev to pay money is called the Russia. The one who's exonerated from paying money is called the tzaddik. Whatever, you can apply that pasuk of its tikkut tzaddik v'shivas a Russia to all kinds of edus. The Edom that were Zayim, the first kat of Edom, were Mashiach Tzaddik, and Mazim were Matzdik Tzaddik, the Mikara. Then we say Vayim ben Akasa Rasha, that the Zayim become Chayiv in Malchus. The Khan Lashayach Klaus Edom Mashiach Tzaddik. There's nobody on trial here. Right? It's not a civil case, it's not a criminal case. There's no tzaddik, there's no Russia, there's a levana. We just have to know which day is Rosh Chodesh. The whole pasuk doesn't pass. It could be that in this case, even if mazimim would come, we wouldn't give the zayim malchus. The exercise of that could be Mashiach tzaddik. Kanen ban Mashiach klal l'shum ben adam. They wouldn't come into Mashiach to cause a loss to anybody, not criminal and not civil, not hitting a guy on his back and his life and his pocketbook, nothing. Umilav the loisanim of Ursham, then like and have a live shame by Maisa. You see the sugi over there on Daf Beza and Beza Malchus, you see that al loisanim berech et shaka, they certainly can't get Malchus. Okay, so he's not so sure. He's not sure that it would work out, this requirement that you need. He wants to propose that for the edus of Kiddush HaChodesh, you need potential v'azama edus at the yachal azima. First he says it's good according to the first teretz of Taisus. Laget malchus, and that's also considered kasha zamam lasis, a kiyum of kasha zamam lasis. But he's not so sure. Now he says because there's no tzaddik in Russia in the original testimony, so maybe that's not considered that you makayim azam on them. They take a walk. You don't give them anything. They won't get malchus at all. Achoshel if he's there, Eich mishkachas lo edus achodesh klal. Abazai fragt the kasha Taisus is kasha. The same kasha Taisus asks on edus of galus and edus of making a kain into a cholol. Now ask it on kiddush achodesh. How can you ever be makash the chodesh al piriya like they did in the times of Sanhedrin? How can you do it? You never have kosher Adam. The kosher, they're fine to mention, they're gedolim, they're everything, but they don't have potential for azama. Ki edus yat yachlazima klal kalashas the cholay edus yat yachlazima and edus klal. That's not considered an edus. Mashim b'chol makom tzarich edim. Anytime you need edim, you need potential azama. V'kan le mishkachas l'klal. Here it's impossible. V'efsher the b'chol makom like an arbaim. Could be that you do get malchus. That's the minimum. That's the default. If you're not going to be able to do them exactly what their edus was going to do to the accused, you give them malchus. I know, to me this sounds a little bit like a baksvar. I mean, a good kazak. There's no tznikus atzadik. The limud that the Gemara has, that Ein Zayimim could get malchus if you can't do to them exactly what their edus was supposed to do. That limud, that pasuk l'char doesn't apply. If the pasuk doesn't apply and they take a walk, they're not going to get malchus. So Taisus first teretz doesn't work. L'char.
That's malchus the arise, maybe. Malchus mardis. They wouldn't have a power to
behind the Makis, and therefore their power creates an Eidish Shatiach
I like it. That's a very nice svara, but I think you're reading a lot into the Minchas Chinuch. That's what you think it means? That they're going to get Makis Mardis? He sounds like he's just saying, no, you see from that sugya that if you can't make a guy a chalal, if you can't send the guy to an ir miklat, let's give him Malchus.
Why?
Because that's the problem.
Because of the pasuk, because they didn't do that.
The
Minchas Chinuch must be imputing because you have to have a punishment for perjury.
Okay.
They perjure themselves.
Okay. I hear what you're saying.
That's what I'm thinking.
Okay, possibly. Mikomakum Yalfinon. I know it sounds like a Yalfusa. It sounds like something you're learning out of a pasuk. The Bechol Duchta. Okay. Fine. So that's one side. One side is it's called Atiyach Lazim. We'll give him Malchus, and it's called Atiyach Lazim. It's not such a klal l'kayal hashas, and he quotes a Gemara in Bava Kama. That's a bullshit. If it's impossible under any circumstances, then it's we waive the requirement. And tzarchayit shadiyach lazim klal. Im kain nafkamina kan the bein and drisha chakira. Ein Ram Perek Aleph Halacha Zayin. Okay, maybe I missed the Rambam here. The Lashon of the Rambam Perek Aleph Halacha Zayin is as follows: Mitzvah semen atayr al bezin sheyachshavu v'yedu im yira yareach or lo yira v'sheyidrishu es ha'edem ad sheyikadshu es ha'chaydish. Okay, again, I'm not 100% sure, but to me the Pashtus Lashon of this Rambam means yidrishu es ha'edem. What did you see? I don't think he's referring to drishas v'chakiras. When did you see? Where did you see? But what did you see? Was it Kazarei v'kadesh or not?
Maybe there's a drisha v'chakira even before the Baitusim were Makal to the Chadish.
Right.
It was the regular drisha v'chakira min Torah, which was a 7 question.
Right.
After the Baitusim came, that's when Rabbi Yochanan created the chart. Did you see the moon facing this way? Did you see the moon facing this way? Depending upon the Tekufa, was it high in the sky, low in the sky?
That's what
the Rambam means by drisha.
Okay, I hear the issue. I'd have to look at the Nicer Kalam and the Rambam to know exactly what it means. Certainly, the Minchas Chinuch is learning the Lashon of this Rambam that it means regular drishas, right? So obviously you're going to have to say some kind of a yishuv between what these drishas were and what they instituted after the advent of the Baisusim. Excellent. Okay, whatever. You just bring a rye from here that you need drishas v'chakiris and memelo yachal azima.
Once Bezin says the Chodesh and Kodesh, right?
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be called Kasher Osa already? I mean, we have to, right? Would that be...
Gewaltig. Okay, for those of you not aware what he's referring to is, there's a very tiny window of opportunity for the din of Hazama from Hazimim to come. Okay, because we don't have Inu Yadin on the same day, there's no court of appeals, there's no death row in Judaism. On the day the Bezdin pronounces a sentence on somebody, that's the day the execution takes place. I don't know exactly what the time interval is, but it's not more than a couple of hours. And the din is, and here's where it gets a little bit hairy with Dinei Mamanis, because after B'chazara, Rishonim say you could do it. But there's a drasha Gemara like this, and there's also machlokes with the tztukim. It says kasha zamam lasis la'achiv, v'arei achiv kayim. Yeah, but mashmais of the pasuk is like you plotted to do it to your brother. He's not called your brother if he's dead. A dead brother is not a brother. I mean, a dead brother is a brother if it's a biological brother, but a brother in Klal Yisrael, as a lichten dread, he's not your brother. So from there we say we have a yishuv that the tztukim said, if the Edom come before execution, you punish them. If they come after execution, Allah is kam v'kam. We said no. Harei achiv kayim. Kasha zamam la'asais la'achiv, like he plotted to do, for like kasha rasa. But if his nefarious plot was successful, and he taka succeeded in the other person getting killed, we don't do anything to him. The code word for that drasha is kasha zamam v'loy kasha rasa. Okay? If they come too late of the mazim, if they come after execution, the Zayimim walk. In fact, there, what's it shayach by the mitzvah of Kiddush HaChodesh? Zamam v'lo yasa. It's, you want to talk about Gitta v'yarabah and you want to talk about simultaneous things. The thing is a pronouncement. The execution, the din is the hachraz of Bezdin Mekudesh. There's no, I'm saying it's the Gemara din and it's the Maisa. There's no dissonance between Bezdin pronounce a sentence and then the executive branch has to do something. Yeah? It doesn't work that way. As soon as they say Mekudesh, the show is over. So when precisely should the Mazimim come? If they come during Drishas v'Chakiras, that's too early. Yeah? The Gemara is Limudim for that also, that we don't do anything to the Zayimim then either. And if they come after they say Mekudesh, that's L'chayra Kasher Asa. Not Kasher Zaman Lases. It's Kasher Asa. So one exact Mazimim is supposed to come.
From the time they finish listening to the testimony, the Bezdin gets together, do you believe him? It takes 15-20 minutes, and then they say Mekudesh.
Yeah, but in a murder case, a Malkus case, it's not that way. Murder case, Malkus, if the Mazimim come during those deliberations, we don't do anything to the Zayimim. They have to come after Bezdin passes on the guy, Chayv Misa. If they come a minute before that, it's a mistral. I'm not saying you believe the first Kita Vedim, but we don't do anything to them either.